Evening, everybody. Okay, so you'll notice that I'm not in my usual surroundings. Late last night, in fact, I woke up this morning to a text message that one of my best friends, my oldest school friends, my lifelong best friends, had a heart attack last night. And I'm now down in the deepest, darkest depths of Cornwall at his place. He's still in hospital. I've been to see him and I'm staying here overnight before I can go back to the hospital, hang out with him tomorrow morning. This is actually an old friend who's at school with me and Stig I. So he's a mutual close friend of ours. He had a very close call last night and credits the NHS for saving his life. He's not in a good way. But I'm in his place, so hence the different surroundings. Now, so I'm not quite as well prepared as I would be for this evening, but this is what you're going to watch this evening in this video is a conversation. There's the kind of conversation that Alex and I, Housing Stig, for those of you who are new, is actually a name that you guys gave him. He's just Alex to me. It's the kind of conversation he and I used to just have on the phone. We're just chatting about stuff. And I said to him, so we should have this conversation on video because I think people find it interesting. So that's what you're watching this evening. It's a free range conversation just between me and him that you're welcome to listen into. We're going to be touching on, well, I've had a huge number of new followers recently, mostly on Instagram, weirdly, and TikTok. And for you guys, I'd like to just reiterate the purpose of this channel before I bring Alex in. He's popped out for a quick ciggy at home, so he's not even in there yet. The first reason for this channel is to help people who are moving house, whether you're buying, whether you're selling, or doing both. I want to bring my 25 years of insight from behind the scenes of the estate agency industry as a supplier of technology and marketing services to agents. So Alex is back. Sorry, but just distracted. So yeah, I'm here to help people move. Sorry guys, I'll get focused in a second. I'm here to help people move. I'm here to help people avoid being ripped off and overpaying for houses, and wherever I can help, also mortgages. I'm here to help people being ripped off by shitty conveyancers and to avoid the pitfalls that are moving. And I'm here to try and help bring transparency to the housing market through my property website, Best Agent. And my ultimate goal is a home for everyone. That's just what I've always been striving to work towards since I started in this industry. And 25 years into that mission, I've become pretty battle hardened about things that just don't work when it comes to trying to fix the housing industry. And I've seen 25 years of things that don't work. And in this evening's video, the main conversation is going to be with Alex about how politics just doesn't work, government doesn't work when it comes to improving the housing market. So chime in with your comments and your questions. But this evening is more about a conversation about the economy, politics, the budget, what happened in the election this week, that kind of stuff. So I'll shut up rambling because I'm clearly not doing a very good job this evening. And welcome, Alex. Alex, are you there? I
am here, Charlie. How are you doing?
It's been a bit of a shit day, actually.
Yes.
And it's yeah, we're all right. He's not. Hopefully he will be soon.
I'm sure he will.
It's weird to be here in his house without him. But let me just get your beautiful face up on the screen. The only public photograph of Alex that exists. Someone was already commenting on how beautiful your teeth are, Alex, by the way, in the comments, I noticed.
Oh, well, what can I say? The dentist.
I also made myself a cup of tea, one of our mutual friend mugs, and only because of the camera did I see what it says on the bottom.
Oh, Nick will be so happy you're using that one.
I had no idea until I literally was just on the screen and I saw that happen. So, Nick, mate, we were having a chat earlier when I was driving down here, and we were talking about, well, I was sharing with you my frustrations about the fact that I don't know why anybody expects or waits for or thinks that the government is ever going to do anything that touches the sides of the problems in the housing market, other than make it worse.
Correct. All they will attempt to do is stimulate prices in the housing market, because they figure that that's where everybody who has a house has their wealth, and therefore it will appear that the country is, doing better.
Well, having said that, they mooted the 99% government-backed taxpayer guaranteed, I think is the correct phrase,
Yep.
taxpayer guaranteed mortgage, and they got a resounding nope and have withdrawn that, which I was relieved to see.
Oh, 100%. But it was the banks that told them to bugger off.
Right.
Because the bank sat there and said, look, in order to do this, it's going to be much more risky in terms of defaults, because you're saying that people can buy a house with, a couple of grand down. So everyone will rush for it. So we are going to make the interest rates on those mortgages higher, because it's the only way we can cover ourselves. At which point the government went, oh, well, if they're higher, that's not really going to help people very much, is it? So, yeah, that went off. I mean, it was just the dumbest idea from the outset.
Yeah, I know. It's actually embarrassing that they even tried it, really, isn't it? And I made the point in a post earlier this week that it's not so much the 99% mortgages that I think are a bad idea, although that's a separate discussion. I think that de-risking it for a feckless first-time buyer with no money,
yeah, exactly,
that is the reckless part. Now, I'm not saying all first-time buyers are feckless, but what I'm saying is that there are some who'll go, well, there's no downside. Why wouldn't we?
Exactly.
And then you get too many people doing it, and that props up the prices. And then they go, oh, I can't afford it anyway. Oh, well,
yeah.
Easy come, easy go. And you
taxpayer backed, don't have to worry.
Yeah, this is the point. And it doesn't make sense I mean, if you think about it, it's frankly offensive to the taxpayer.
Yes.
Hey, taxpayer, would you mind guaranteeing first-time buyer mortgages? There's no upside. I mean, anyway. And the other thing that we were talking about was that the Bank of England did the mortgage approvals data for January.
Yeah.
Oh, and I brought... Oh, yes, you got it. Brilliant. There it is. I've got to open this up and get it up on the screen. Share this tab. Here we go. And no, that's not it.
No, that's GDP per capita.
That's what you emailed me, I think.
Yes, because you said you had the housing one.
Oh, yes. Where is it now? It's a good job we're on the phone. It's a good job we're on the phone. We haven't got hundreds of people watching this, because they'd be pretty.
It's about the sixth one. Hang on, I can get it up for you if you want. Hang on. Can I share that? Let me just move that there.
The Charlie and Alex clown show.
There you go.
Okay, thank you very much. Glad one of us is on the ball this evening.
Okay.
Right. Okay, so this is good, because I would like everyone to remind themselves what the newspaper headlines said, and it's so microscopically tiny.
You can't really see the upside, can you?
I just want to point out the pure idiocy of this, right? It's so, on the right-hand side of that graph, I don't know if everyone can see this on the screen, right? On the right-hand side of that graph, there is a bit of green stuff, and that is monthly mortgage approvals, non-seasonally adjusted. Is that just since when is that? That's in the last 12 months.
You're correct.
So that green bit, the far extreme right-hand end of the screen, and at the very right-hand end of that green bit, there's a teeny tiny little uptick, and even uptick is a generous term to describe what that is, right? But it is an uptick. And that led to the headlines of surge in mortgage approvals. And then you look at that graph, it goes back to 2000, go back 20 years, no, 30 years, right? And you're going, hang on a second, is that really a surge? The housing market's back. Buyers are back in the market with confidence and everything's booming.
The reality is the last 12 months have most closely matched 2011 and 2012. And bear in mind, we have 5 million more people in the country than we had in 2011 and 2012. 5 million additional people. So I wouldn't really be saying that it's fantastic, but the reason the graph goes all the way back to 93 is you can see the effectively 5 separate timelines. So from 93 through until 96, 97, we had a rate of about 80,000 mortgage approvals per month on average. Then you had the
I really want
madness.
everyone to remember that, right? This average monthly figure, because then we'll get to, yeah, sorry, I'll shut up and let you go now. Go.
That's all right. So it was about 80,000 from 93 to 97. Then, of course, after Barings, the change of regulation, Bank of England started only looking at interest rates and no longer monitored all of the lending banks. That was left to the FSA. And we just had this huge upward climb until we got to a point where we were averaging 120,000 approvals. So, you know, 50%.
120,000 a month.
In 07, 06, 07, it was 120,000 a month average approvals. So 50% more than for the previous period. Then we had the GFC, which is that big red line you see in the middle, which is where mortgage approvals fell through the floor to their lowest level ever until the pandemic of 20,000 in a month, which was in about February of 09. Then all the way through from February 09 until basically March of 2013, when Help to Buy came in.
Hang on, isn't that the period when interest rates were very low?
Yes, 0.5% interest rates on average. We only had a.
Surely everything would have shot back up, right?
No, weirdly no, because we also had.
But all my friends in the pub tell me that as soon as interest rates come down, mortgage approvals will shoot back up and house prices will shoot back up. What do you mean low interest rates won't make house prices and mortgage approvals go back up? It can't be so.
Well, in exactly the same way as from 97 through into 07, we had those 120,000 a month mortgage approvals, whilst interest rates floated around 5.5%.
Right, where we are now.
Because interest rates just aren't actually as important as how much you earn. And wages between 09 and 12 were basically flat. I mean, the economy didn't recover, even despite the 0.5%, or perhaps because of the 0.5% interest rates. And so it was only when Help to Buy came in 2013, and actually wages did start to go up, that you see we suddenly got to an average of 60,000 a month. So that was still 25% down on 93 to 97. But, you know, it was there. Then, of course, we had COVID madness, and you can see that that bottom red spike is actually the lowest that it's ever been in this time period. That's 10,000.
That was when they stopped the housing market altogether, didn't they, for a couple of months?
Exactly. That was 10,000 mortgage approvals in a month. And then they went, oh, Jesus Christ, look what we've done. Let's give everyone a stamp duty holiday. At which point we got back up to a peak of 105,000 in a month. And you go, Jesus, that's why you get those big spikes, because then the stamp duty was supposed to go away and then they extended it. So you get another set of spikes. And then, of course, we have the falling off the edge of the cliff, which started in 22, at the back end of 22, and then continued through until January, February, March.
Do you mean 2022, the summer? Do you mean when you and I started telling everyone, watch out, guys, here it comes? No, but it's booming. And supply and demand, and there are too many people, and immigration, and not enough houses. House prices simply cannot fall, mate. Sorry, mate. Sorry, supply and demand. Sorry, mate. I can't fall. And since when we've had even higher immigration numbers, whilst house prices continue to come down and mortgage approvals come down. Keep going.
And so we then have the recovery. We've got the recovery that everyone's been talking about, which started in about April of last year, this big recovery. And what you can see from that green line is the recovery is the same as 09 to 13 before Help to Buy. In terms, and bear in mind, we've got to be clear, this is mortgage approvals. So does this mean that there are this many fewer mortgage transactions? No, not necessarily, because there are cash buyers. Certainly, if you go back about a year, there were lots of people that were releasing equity, obviously older people, to give to younger people.
You mean
Sorry?
not mortgage. You mean housing transactions, not mortgage transactions.
Correct. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, housing transactions. But it is a very close correlation between the number of people approved for a mortgage and the number of houses that are bought. Now, there are more cash buyers, so it's not quite as low as this would appear, but it's still very, very low. So anyone talking about, yeah, great recovery, we are not even back to the period 13 to 20.
But everyone's saying that confidence is back and that the 2024 market looks promising. Do you remember them saying that at the beginning of 2023?
Yes.
It's amazing. It's exactly the same thing. Buoyant. Do you remember how buoyant the market was in 2023?
We're just waiting for the spring surge.
Yeah. And it's like an absolute rinse and repeat. They're saying the same thing now. It's 2023 was absolutely brutal for estate agents and people who make their living out of moving houses. 2023 was just...
It was horrendous. Let's just make it really clear. From 1993 until today, there are 10 million more people in the country, an increase of 17%. And yet, our mortgage approval transactions are 44% lower than they were from 93 to 97. And interest rates are exactly the same as they were in 93 to 97. So why are they so low? Because the house prices have gone up so much from 93 to 97 that the same interest rate is simply unaffordable because wages have not matched that increase.
That's just a mathematical statement of fact. And I hope that people watching this, if anyone is still watching after our clown show to start with, I hope people watching this, when they look back at the headlines last week on the mortgage approvals, just feel a bit like insulted by the newspapers saying that everything's back when they look at your amazing graph. And thank you for your time on doing that, by the way. Because that's Bank of England official mortgage approval data, right?
Yes.
That's not something that you just sketched freehand late one night after.
No, that is their non-seasonally adjusted monthly mortgage approval numbers from 93 to 2024. And anyone can go and look at the bank stats tables on the Bank of England website. Have a look at table 5.4.
Yeah, which I've linked to in the previous video, actually, exactly that. So now, can you help me with something else? Oh God, I'm all over the place tonight. I had a great question.
Let's face it, you've had a pretty traumatic day. Even just chatting to Nick on WhatsApp, it's yeah.
Yeah.
We're old, mate.
Is it rude to go into his fridge and get one of his beers? Because
no, do you think he'd give a damn?
Because I just kind of feel like that's actually what I need to do. No, I mean, come on. I have fed his cat for him.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
That after the smell of cat food, you definitely need a beer.
Yeah. So no more of this. My last sip of this for everyone. That was brilliant. It made me laugh. I almost spat the tea out the first time before we went live. I forgot what my question was. I want to come on to the next thing anyway, because this week I sort of hit peak fatigue with the endless debating and discussion around the housing market that's been the same for decades, and nothing has happened. Yeah. Nothing's been approved. Nothing's been improved. They haven't built more houses. They haven't made them more affordable. They haven't made the developers build the affordable homes that they're supposed to.
No. Instead, you're seeing... Yeah, I mean, what I'm seeing, and bear in mind, we're both lucky enough to live in pretty reasonably affluent and, whatever areas. But I'm seeing shops being converted into flats. I'm seeing houses being converted into flats. Basically, the standard of accommodation and the standard of living for the average person in the UK is diminishing in the same way that wealth is diminishing. Everything is just getting a little more tacky and a little smaller. And actually 65 square meters is perfectly reasonable, for a home, for a family. Maybe Maybe, but that's not the way these houses were built. Why have they been turned into 3 separate flats when it used to be just one, terraced house?
So let's just, this is your graph that you emailed me kindly about what you just discussed, which is that we're basically getting poorer.
Yeah.
So do you want to just talk people through that graph, which goes back, when does that go back to?
Oh, a long time. Let me just get that on the large screen, because even I can't see it from here. Right, that goes back to 1981.
So what are we looking at here? This is per capita GDP.
Yes, and sorry, and I didn't make this clear on the graph. I should have done, but it was quite late at night. This is quarterly GDP. So for the annual figure, just multiply it by 4. So when you see that I'm saying, it's X thousand, you just need to multiply that up.
But let's not get into the weeds of this, but just in a nutshell, that line is a graph of UK wealth per capita. So per person, personal wealth, right?
Well, no, personal productivity. And it matches very closely with wages. I mean, that's the way these things work, GDP wage. So if you look from 81 through until the big recession of the 90s in 90, you've got that nice blue line that's heading up there. And you can see the correlation is 0.98. So it's a very close correlation. And if we had continued at that rate, we would expect that GDP per capita would be about £11,800 per quarter.
Oh, I see. So if you follow the dotted line.
Yeah.
Okay. So the most steep dotted line is where we would be had we stayed on that trend in the 80s.
Correct. Now, the recession hit us. We fell back. It took us 14 quarters to get back to the original level before the crash at the beginning of 1990.
3.5 years.
Yep. But we then continued to go up at exactly the same rate. You can see we lost some productivity, but then we're going up. And if we'd followed that line, we would currently be at about £11,000 per quarter per person. So 44 grand a year.
Yeah.
But then we had the financial crisis. And that's the next red down.
The second red dip, yeah.
And then what you see is it took 30 quarters to actually get back to that level this time. So twice as long as it took back in the 90s.
Years.
Yep. But you can see that our growth rate from then has slowed dramatically. In fact, it slowed to the point where we'd only be a couple of £1,000 better off than we are. We'd be about £35,000.
So the rate of growth of that GDP per capita has just like been weaker.
Yes, but now look at COVID. So COVID came along, and
just COVID. Can I just say that? So that third blue line there, where we have the weakest growth of those 3 blue lines, wasn't that the period when we've had quantitative easing and very low interest rates to stimulate the economy?
Correct.
And so even though we stimulated the economy much more than the last 2 times, it still didn't even manage to keep didn't manage to keep pace with the previous growth rate.
Correct, which is why I describe it as a decaying energy system. This is something that is
diminishing returns, right? Basically.
Yeah. Despite the 0.5% interest rates, there was a massive increase in public debt, whereas for the previous period, there was only a massive increase in private debt. But now we're indebted across both private and public. And at this point, we have COVID, falls off a cliff. And that orange line is our GDP per capita since then. Now, you can see...
That's worrying. Looking at that line, that's really, really worrying.
Not only are we not back at the original level that we were pre-COVID, and bear in mind, COVID, it wasn't that we had, a financial crisis. It wasn't because there were dodgy, mortgage-backed securities in the market. It wasn't because of an overinflated housing market, as it was in the 90s and so on. No, and lots of other things, the exchange, and lots of things in the 90s. This was just the government saying, "Oh, you better stay home. We're going to shut the economy." So you might expect it to bounce back really fast because there's nothing else has changed in the financial system. And they created inflation, and so they've had to put interest rates up. Well, look at it now. We're not on track to get back to where we were before in 30 quarters. At this point, it looks like we'll never get back to where we were before. Now, that trend may change depending on how much investment there is in the country. But right now, per capita, and this is where the government cheats in that, they don't show you per capita GDP, they show you total GDP. Well, if you've increased your population by 10 million people, of course, your GDP is going to go up unless all of them are on welfare. But
Right.
per capita is a much better way of measuring the true
Quality
effect.
of life.
Yeah, exactly, your quality of life. And bear in mind, this chart would be exactly the same if you went to somewhere like France, or to some degree, with the exception of America, because it's a reserve currency, pretty much every other first world economy.
So that graph really does fly in the face of the everything's okay narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. So we've covered mortgage approvals and we've covered GDP per capita. I'd now like to talk about, because it's every single day. Let me just get rid of that graph for a second. Every single day there is news about the economy, news about the housing market, news about politics, news about the war, and yet our quality of life as a country it's not even stagnating at the moment. It's
declining. Well,
It's
unless you listen to Kezia, because I think she lives either in Chelsea or Kensington. And what we're talking about, Kezia, is actually the wealth divide. And it is getting vaster and vaster between the very few who have a lot of money and everybody else who is just getting poorer.
Yeah. So we've got the budget coming up 3 days from now. And I was listening, I spent a lot of time in the car today, and I was listening to radio, and one of the news bulletins, they were interviewing people in the street saying, what would you like for the budget? What would you like for the budget? What would you like for the budget? And one bloke, I was just the best answer. He just went, I really don't care because this government's finished and it doesn't make any difference.
It's a little apathetic, but he's not wrong. If people continue to vote,
I don't think it was apathy at all. I think it was it doesn't matter what they do.
Well, as long as you continue to vote Conservative or Labour, then I agree. There is no point. But there is potentially another way.
So he said, well, what he seemed to be saying was, this government's dead. They're out no matter what. And I completely agree with that. I would bet any amount of money that the Conservatives are not getting back in with the majority. Just there's zero chance of that.
Seems fair.
And I just quickly like to just FYI, just little sidebar here. My politics are that I'll vote for whoever I think will improve the quality of life for the most people in this country. That's what I've always done, right? And in the last 4 elections, I have voted differently each time. 4 different parties, once each, in the last 4 elections. So in case anyone thinks that I'm a dyed-in-the-wool this or that or the other, I'm really not. Mm-hmm. And I studied politics. I can't remember why I studied politics, but I did study politics. Yeah. And so from that point of view, I find it sort of macabre and fascinating and totally ineffective, and it just achieves nothing. And there are lots of very important looking and very important sounding people who paid a lot of money, who talk about things a lot and sound and look important, but deliver fuck all.
Yep.
As an organization. So I'm just like, I don't care what anyone says. It only matters what you deliver. Deliver or die. Just so I was thinking about the budget, and I thought, and this guy's comment just it doesn't matter what they do. It makes no difference what they do, because there's going to be elections shortly afterwards, and it's all going to change again anyway. And that got me thinking about the election. Then it got me thinking about the Rochdale by-election that happened this week, which again, from a political student's point of view, purely, I thought that was a seismic event.
It was, right? Certainly the results were pretty bloody interesting.
So it was, and 2 things happened. So here are the results of that by-election. And truly, guys, just if there was an election tomorrow, I don't know who I'd vote for. I would probably spoil my ballot. you know, or if I found someone in my constituency that was really inspirational, and I thought, actually, just before we went live, I did a poll on X. Is that on the screen?
Mm-hmm.
Look at that.
You need to make it a bit smaller because you're covering up the
Okay. Who do you want? What do you want? Sorry, I've just seen the typo in my question. Who do you want to happen at the general election? Who's going to happen? Either main party to win, 22%. Both main parties to lose, 56%. Or I don't know or care, 20%. Now, if that is representative of the electorate's sentiments at the moment, and you said before we went live, you don't think it is. You think there are a lot of people who live in very comfortable places who are going to vote for the main parties.
Yeah.
But that does reflect that. I mean, those numbers almost exactly reflect what happened in Rochdale, because what's his name, Galloway, and this independent guy that no one had ever heard of, between them, got 51% of the vote.
No, 61.
Jesus, sorry. I'll have another swig of beer, quick.
Yeah, you need more beer. You definitely need more beer. No, I mean, the thing that's amazing about this is that Conservative, Labour and Lib Dem together didn't get much more than a quarter of the vote. I mean, that's got to be unusual, surely.
Well, I heard, but I have not been able to verify, that this has never happened ever in the history of British politics, when neither of the main parties were in either first or second place. Always one of the two main parties, if they don't win, will be in second place. And this is the first constituency election in the history of British politics where neither main party made it into first or second place. So now the reason, again, as a student of politics, right, not for any other reason, I just thought, I was like, this is a big deal. And then I saw the interview with George Galloway, which I thought was fascinating. Again, from what point of view? I know George Galloway is a divisive figure in terms of he divides opinion, and I don't know much about him, and I haven't had a chance to look into him. But he just kept on repeating the fact that I've been elected. The guy in charge of it said, "This is a free and fair election, and you're questioning me like I've done something wrong. I've just been elected. That's all I've done is just been elected." Yeah. And then you have both Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer, who George Galloway hilariously refers to as the two different cheeks of the same arse.
which is a apt thing.
Both of them, is it what? Sorry?
Which is a fairly reasonable thing to say.
Yeah. So both of them. So Keir Starmer comes on and apologizes. He should just apologize for being ineffective. I just don't think I think he's just like a piece of jelly as far as a leader is concerned. And then you have Sunak doing that extraordinary, standing on the steps of number 10. It just felt like he'd been sent out to say it by someone, but standing on the steps of number 10 as an unelected prime minister, as in, like, even the Conservative Party members didn't elect. It was a walkover, wasn't it? It was a simple automatic. When Liz Truss went, it was just, okay, it's yours now. There was no, and I don't think that's ever happened either. There was no Conservative Party members leader election. He was literally anointed. And he stood there and said, "We're really worried that the Rochdale election result is a threat to democracy." Like, he was having that's democracy working. Like, the people of Rochdale voted overwhelmingly. Yes. Isn't that exactly what
democracy is? It is kind of the definition.
Democracy working. And they could almost see the panic. And it's like someone has said to the left and right cheek of the arse party, "Out you go, both of you, and say something to make up for this absolute nightmare." Now, if what's happening in my my poll here is representative, this gives me hope, because as I've said on this channel every time we discuss politics, which isn't often, but it's a few times, every time we discussed it, I've said I think people should vote for anyone but the two main parties, because the two main parties are responsible for the two graphs that you just showed us for a start.
Yeah.
Right? They're responsible for the decline of the British economy and the quality of life for British people. And they both need to be fired by the electorate. That's what I think, right? And so if this election comes and what we see on screen there happens at the general election, I mean, I don't know what will happen.
No, it would be a little anarchic.
Well, I mean, what procedurally, what will happen is we've got a hung parliament immediately, and there'll be lots and lots and lots and lots of jostling, won't there, to
who
form
teams up with whom? Yep.
Which will be very, very interesting, because at that point, it's almost like anyone, it could be anybody, could be anyone that stands up. And then they'd probably need to then call another election quite soon, wouldn't they?
Yes. I mean, let's face it, much as MPs are an important part of our government, a lot of governing is done by the civil service, who don't change as the MPs do. So it wouldn't necessarily immediately descend into anarchy, but you're right. I mean, when was the last time that it wasn't Labour, Conservative, or Lib Dem?
Yeah, exactly. And so to bring this back round to housing, the reason I'm so passionate about housing is that I think so many things stem from the quality of our housing stock as a country, right? I think that children's life chances are massively impacted by the quality and security of their housing, where they grow up, the actual property they grow up in, and the community that they grow up in, and their life chances are massively affected by it, number one. I think that people's sense of pride and dignity is affected by where they live. You know, and going back to when we were kids, if you had a full-time job, you could pretty much afford to buy a house.
Yes.
You could be a postie, a milkman, whatever. You could buy a house.
Yep.
And so you had the pride and the dignity of saying, I am providing a home to raise my family in, a home that I will own one day. And that, again, when everyone feels like they get home at the end of their working day to a home that they own or they've bought or they're buying, you feel okay about yourself.
Yeah, because you can put your mark on that environment that is safe, that is yours. Yeah. You know, renting, no matter what anybody says, and no matter how nice your landlord is, renting a home is not the same as owning it. Owning a home allows
not with the laws that we have in this country.
No. More so in places like Germany, but certainly not here now. And I'm sure we'll get onto the renter reform bill. But the other side of this coin, and I agree with everything you said, Charlie, about the importance of owning a home and what it can do for you as a human and for your family. The flip side is, because we've been so obsessed with homes and all of our money as citizens has been invested in our homes, it has taken away from any investment in our economy, because we're not buying shares like the Americans do. We're not actually going and investing in businesses. We're putting all of our cash against a mortgage to get a home so that we've got somewhere to live. And that's one of the reasons, I believe, why our GDP has fallen so much per capita over the last 20 years. Ever since house prices started to really take off. And of course, if you look from 1960 to 1980, yes, they took off. But as a percentage of salary, it was still not where we are today. And it means that as a nation, we're not very good at investing in new startups. We're not good at investing in shares. We're good only at saying, oh, do you know what's safe? Bricks and mortar. Well, that takes money out of the economy from things that could be valuable and actually gain for you into a single asset, which is your home.
Okay, let me ask you a question then. Going back to your extraordinary graph of mortgage approvals going back to the 90s and the 2000s when they got staggeringly high.
Yep.
What do you think would have happened to house prices and, more importantly, affordability had the consequences of the global financial crisis been allowed, had we not basically
Oh,
done
you'd have seen a halving, basically a halving in house prices, I believe.
the QE, if QE hadn't happened, if 0.5% interest rates hadn't happened, and if all of that help to buy shit hadn't happened, what would have happened to the economy and affordability and house prices to earnings, etc., if it had been allowed to reach its natural, if the market had been left untouched, what would have happened?
Okay, so as we saw from that graph for GDP, it took 30 quarters to get back to where we were after the GFC. If we had not propped everything up, if we had not lowered interest rates to 0.5%, I believe that red line that you see there in terms of mortgage approvals, but could be applied to GDP, could be applied to anything, would be much, much lower. But the recovery would be faster and also would now have more prosperity in the economy. Because by propping it up, it allowed people who really could only just barely afford to still get on the housing ladder. And if we go back to 07, which is roughly when it started, I mean, we're talking about, 17 years ago. So the boomers 17 years ago weren't quite that rich yet. And the loss they would have suffered would have been horrible. But actually, they wouldn't have lost that much on the homes that they'd bought in the 80s and 90s in terms of they would still have a real value to their asset. The problem we've got now is we've had so many people over the last few years buy houses at hugely overinflated prices that if it crashes now, they have literally wiped out all of their money. So my view has always been, if you're in that sort of situation, if the patient is sick, and the answer is there's gangrene heading up the leg, well, you chop the foot off. You take the pain, you take it immediately, because that way you can then go on and prosper. If you just go, no, we'll try this, we'll try that, we'll give you some more drugs, maybe some massage and some hot water treatment, that gangrene is going to spread until you get to a point where the patient is going to die. And that's unavoidable. It just takes a lot longer. So my view has always been take the pain up front. I think if we'd let everything crash, it would have been horrible, much worse than it was, would have been horrendous. But for a few years, what we've actually done is we've made the last 17 years grindingly terrible for a large part of the population. And they don't notice it.
All the money out of the economy into housing.
Correct. And they don't notice it so much because, it's still okay. Yeah, I mean, I can't buy the sort of house that my parents bought, and I can't do this and I can't do that. No, we don't go on that sort of holiday anymore. But it's just getting worse and worse. It's a slow death. It's a decay.
Yeah, it is. I completely agree. And again, for anyone who actually wants to look at the figures as you have, it's inescapable. What's actually happening, if you just become detached and impartial and look at it, go, the economy has been on life support since the global financial crisis, literally with quantitative easing and with help to buy and very low interest rates. And even that hasn't stimulated any notable real growth.
No.
So I'm just looking at some of the comments here. You see, as soon as you remove away from the polarization of left or right politics and get into a much more, hang on a second, there are many, many, many options here. A lot of people go, but I was told to pick a side.
Yeah. There is no grey.
If you take the side away, what do I do?
Yeah.
I think this is so good for people, so healthy. So, you're going to have to figure it out for yourself. You're going to have to actually think, well, what really matters here? And because I'm so convinced about housing being the one thing, if the government said, look, we're going to make sure everyone's got decent, secure homes to raise families in. That's what we're going to do. The rest of it, we're going to leave up to you. We're going to let you run your communities. We're going to let you run your businesses. We're going to tax what we need to tax just to be, but we are going to make sure that everyone's healthy and homed,
Yep.
right? Then imagine what the country could do.
Well, we'd start having more children again, probably.
Yeah. And then wouldn't need to rely so much on immigration to prop the economy up.
Correct.
Yeah. So now, I'm now going to, as if you and I were talking on the phone privately,
Right.
I'm going to share with you because if I'm going to sit here on a YouTube channel and talk about how I want a home for everyone, I better fucking have a plan for it. Otherwise, it's just more words without any meaning. And when you look at countries that have had problems and how they've been solved and that kind of stuff, and I've been fascinated in the last 25 years to see how much more power technology-based corporations have acquired than even governments.
Yep.
Now, unfortunately, the naive founders of all of those places thought, we're going to put list on the stock market and we're going to let people buy shares. And then, whoops, oh dear, we're now just owned by the same people that have always owned everything. Rather than going, let's not do that. Let's just take this brand new thing that we've built that actually has a huge amount of potential for people to benefit from. And let's see what we can do with it if it's not just monetized for pure profit. Now, okay, so housing. I mean, I think almost everybody, even people who do have the fortunate position of living in a really comfortable home, that maybe they own it outright or they've got really secure income and so they've got a secure, comfortable home, even those people are still worried either for their parents who are facing, an old age without anywhere safe to live, or for their children who can't afford to get a home.
Yep.
Everyone, with a very small minority of exceptions, realizes that the housing market in this country is absolutely fucked as a market and would like to see it working better. On that, 99% of people agree, I think, right? I don't have official stats. I plucked that figure out of my arse. 99% of people agree that the housing market in the UK is fucked, especially in England and Wales. Scotland and Northern Ireland, it functions better. The actual moving market functions better because the legal differences. Northern Ireland, I don't know anything about. So, okay, whose job is it to fix housing? Well, it's the government's job. Yeah, okay, but we've agreed. 99% of people agree.
The government are no good at that job.
The government, for whatever reason, let's not talk about why, but for whatever reason, the housing market has become more and more unaffordable, more and more ineffective, more and more substandard, and just not good enough, right?
Yeah.
for rapidly growing numbers of people. Housing is not fit for purpose. The housing market is not fit for purpose. Okay, so we the people are a lot of people. We are 50, 60, whatever it is, million people here. And when we choose to do something together, actually, we can get shit done as a group of people. And all you need, as has been shown by these big tech companies, is the right technology in the right place to allow people to do what they want to do in accordance with without breaking any laws or anything, right? And so why is the housing market so stuffed? One of the reasons, and it's, in my view, one of the biggest reasons, okay, yes, housing policy, housing market interference by government, all of these things have definitely contributed. Selling off social housing without replacing it fast enough, all of these things have contributed to the shit show that we're in now. But in terms of, we can't fix anything that's happened from yesterday backwards, right? The past is the past. What do we do to make it better? What's within our control to make it better? Well, at the moment, nobody has a fucking clue what's happening to house prices because there's no transparency of house prices. There's just no transparency of house prices. And the number one question I get from first-time buyers is, I don't mind paying a fair price, but
What is a fair price?
Right? What's a fair price? I don't, so I'm hoping, because there's so much you can do as the provider of a website or a piece of technology or anything else, right? And I'm talking about the Best Agent Public House Price Index. And yes, I know it sounds like a pub index, ha ha ha, but the Public House Price Index, the Best Agent Public, will be a tool that if the public wants enough to end the transparency, to end the lack of transparency, to end the lack of transparency, I think this would be the fastest way to bring intangible improvements to the housing market, to housing market liquidity, to the pain and cost of moving, to the number of transactions that fail, that would fall. And suddenly, if you could move house more quickly, with more certainty, and more and more transactions and more liquidity is good for everyone and everything. Which is why, by the way, I do think that stamp duty would be better off abolished completely from moving, and for a different tax of some kind to come in to replace the lost.
Oh, he's talking about land value tax.
No, that's one of the ideas I've heard, but it's not. I'm not saying I'm a proponent of that. I'm saying that stamp duty is a handbrake on the housing market. Fact. Now, if you fuck about with it temporarily, you just cause problems.
Yes,
right?
As we saw in 2020.
Scrum, and then it's a stupid thing to the prices, as those graphs all show. Okay, but if people went, we're gonna phase it out gradually, step by step by step, so that there's no rush to do anything. And actually, if you worked it out intelligently, it would just be phased out in a way that, that has no noticeable impact forever. Phased out, gone forever. And you remove that friction and hurdle and financial barrier to people moving, because it's a disincentive for a lot of people to move at the higher end of the market. So but again, the politicians may or may not do that. We have no control over that. But this week, I've seen, so my agent friend, Perry Power, put up a screenshot of an email they've had from someone who said that they said, how's your house sale going? Well, we've been on the market for 2 weeks with no viewings, and we signed a 20-week contract.
No.
And I posted this on all the socials about, like, for fuck's sake, guys, if you just do one thing as a seller, whoever you choose, just don't sign a long-term agency contract. And then someone said to me, I think it was on X, went, oh, I didn't even know that was an option. And it occurred to me, like, a lot of people won't even question that it's a standard corporate requirement, and therefore, hey, oh, okay, well, we don't question.
Yeah. 100%.
And if nothing else, we've got to get that message out there, that there are agents everywhere who do not have long sole agency contracts. And we could effectively ban them by just making everyone aware of the fact that if you're selling a house, sell it with whoever you want, but tell them they're not having a... And I'm going to provide wording to that effect to give people to spread, to say, just copy and paste this wording to the agent you're talking to. Just, I'm not going to sign along. 4 weeks with rolling 2 weeks notice, maybe, but that's it. So, because, let me be clear, I'm rambling in many different directions. The lack of transparency with house prices is the thing that allows the sharks to rip us off.
Yeah.
Buyers and sellers are being ripped off because the industry manages to very much obfuscate and obstruct what's happening to house prices until it's too late. Right? By the time the Land Registry publishes, the majority of transactions for a given month was a year ago. And it's too late. And the thing is that the information that we need to solve that problem exists. We all have it. Everybody knows what they're paying, and there are 5 or 6 parties per transaction who know what the exchange price is on the day of exchange. So I have already created the Best Agent House Price Index. It's there, it's live, and I'm preparing the publicity campaign, the PR, the stuff to go to journalists with, to try to create because I don't know of any other way. We can wait for the politicians, but we'll be dead before anything happens, right? Or we can go, hey guys, there's a way now we can bring transparency to the housing market. It's free, like we can just do it, and that would end overvaluing, overpricing, and the list of things, the benefits that would happen on the back of being able to end overvaluing and overpricing, as well, not just on sales, by the way, but on lettings as well. So that people don't get tricked into overpaying, because this is the problem that I've realized is happening, is that so many first-time buyers and renters are being tricked using FOMO techniques into just overpaying.
Yep.
Not just for homes, but especially for new homes. Oh, by the way, I've got a whistleblower who's contacted me from one of the big. He said he was a new build home sales for 10 years,
right?
And he wanted to tell me everything. He's contacted me on WhatsApp. I've got his number. He's told me the name of the company he's working for. I haven't had a chance to get back to him because our friends keep having heart attacks and stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm really, really keen to find out. And just, you know, people say it's not illegal to overcharge. You know, when Wonga was founded, remember Wonga, the payday loan company?
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
What they were doing wasn't illegal,
No.
but it was so damaging to people that the government had to change the law to make it illegal. They'd never needed a law to make it, because no one had ever fucking done it before. And it's the same with the housing market. I've also got someone else who says that they walked out of their job at Countrywide estate agents when they saw someone sell a house for their client for less money than they could have, so that they could get 2 mortgage deals out of it. And the guy said, I saw him. It was basically, he stole $5,000 from those sellers.
Well, surely that is illegal.
Yeah, but they know you can't.
Hard to prove. Yeah,
years. So they get away with it, and it happens left, right, and centre all the time. But with transparency of pricing, and it happens in other countries. Someone told me that in Ireland, house transaction prices are published weekly, all of them. I don't know if that's true or not. Haven't checked it, but you know, why don't we do that?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I've done it, and I want to show. I'm just going to show. So we're going to start to include it on this page here. So we've got this house price index already, and what we'll do is we'll add a third. So this is showing asking prices. Now, what I've tried to start with here is the transparency of showing the total number of properties that have contributed to these figures, right? So this is all homes for sale in England, and it's homes that are showing as sale agreed, right? And there are 144,000. This is as of the 26th of February, nearly 145,000 of those. And then there's the median asking price. This is not the sold price, but the asking price, and the average. Now look at the difference between the median and the average, right? And then ask yourself why everyone quotes the average. Then you've got the unsold stuff and the difference in prices here. And you can start to form and go, hang on a second. Yeah. Unsold stuff is on 60 grand more on the median, and 138 grand more.
Yes, that's the interesting
average, one. Right? But the transparency here is, this is everything that we can find. Now, I want to add in a third line here, which will be exchanges. And whatever the total number is will be whatever the total number of people who have reported. And I've got conveyancing firms and estate agents who've said that they're going to contribute their exchange price data, which would be amazing. So we aren't just relying on consumers to do it, but the people in the industry as well who want to bring transparency. Yeah. And if it snowballs enough, we might start to actually get a meaningful enough number. And it'll take a while, probably get more in some areas than others, get more in cities to begin with. And we'll start to get areas where actually you're seeing stuff that exchanged yesterday with a rolling 30-day average, like you and I discussed on that call we had. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, is there a better option? Is there a better way that we can think of to to try and get rid of this cloak and dagger shit that happens that ends up with ripping everyone off? And do we really want to carry on ripping people off just to hit targets? And do we want to still be the big corporations like Rightmove and Zoop just sucking hundreds of millions of pounds of money out of the industry each month, each year, without contributing anything back to it? I don't know. What do you reckon? But what do you think is going to happen to the budget? Do you think they're going to, now that he's scrapped the 99% mortgage?
Sorry, apologies. I've been coughing and spluttering in the background.
What do you reckon for the budget?
It's a really tough one. I mean, let's face it. He was all gung ho about tax cuts. I've got headroom, that, and now he's been told that he hasn't because we're fucking broke. So I think it's going to be a big letdown of a budget for many people who are going, oh yeah, no, but he's going to do this. He's going to cut taxes here, and we're going to get a big discount with housing. There's going to be a new Help to Buy scheme, or there's going to be this scheme or that scheme. I think anything that is put forward that helps out the general populace will be tiny, because he simply can't afford anything. Now, they might make some promises. I wouldn't put it past them to make some promises they never intend to implement before the general election, just to make Labour look bad as soon as they get into power. But it's going to be I think it's going to be an absolute wet fart of a budget.
I mean, I heard his very awkward sounding comments on the radio today from his conversation with Laura Kuenssberg this morning. And I want to set us on a path to lower taxes.
Yeah, he's a dick. He's a dick.
Well, so this GDP thing where debt as a proportion of
GDP is just under 100%.
No, but it's going to get worse and worse for 4 years, but in the 5th year, it will start to reduce.
Correct.
So everyone, just hold on for another 5 years, okay?
Yep.
It's another 5 years. All we've got to worry about, and then
in 5 years, we may only be a year away from CBDCs, which is when you can have the debt jubilees, get rid of the public debt, and he'll be absolutely right. It'll be bang on the money. Everything will be good.
There's a few comments here I'd love to just go through. So Kevin H on YouTube says, upward social mobility is dead. I earn twice as much as my parents did, yet I can't afford a house in the town where I grew up. I really worry for my daughter's future. There's a lot of people feeling that, I think.
Yeah.
Pedal Pusher 2008 on YouTube says, both the major parties aren't going to solve this problem. Somehow it's going to have to be a solution from outside Westminster. Yep. Hopefully. Gavin Ward says, I genuinely thought you were a diehard Tory. Sorry. Apology accepted, Gavin. Apology accepted. Don't judge books by covers, etc. Paris Hilton. Is that your real name? Are you just another Paris Hilton, or are you the actual Paris Hilton? I work in politics. Okay, so you're not that Paris Hilton. I work in politics, and I'm late 20s. Electoral politics is dead.
Yeah, not wrong. That's the first time Paris Hilton has actually said anything that makes sense.
Okay. Now, Leandro is from Argentina, and he says, hi, guys. Hello, both. I am from Argentina, but living here in the UK, sorry for my terrible Spanish accent, any chance that people will get fed up with politicians?
Yeah, that'll be a resounding yes.
What do we think? Any chance people get fed up with politicians and vote for someone similar to Javier Milei, who I haven't checked this out, but apparently he's already stopped. He's turned the deficit around.
I mean, but he is a guy. I mean, first of all, you've got to take Argentina into perspective. I mean, they have interest rates inflation was running at 250% and interest rates were 100%. So we're a long way from that. But he is that person who will literally chop off the foot. I mean, I get the feeling that he would chop off the foot as soon as he saw a toenail go the wrong color. But if you want decisive action, I mean, you can't argue. Time will tell whether what he's doing is going to get Argentina out of what has been decades, really, of horrendous
socialist experiment.
Yeah, I mean, just just horrible. And what a fantastic country.
Yeah, oh my God, yeah. Sorry, I've always wanted to go and I haven't been. I want to put something here. I want to make a comment here about socialism because it's funny. All my right-wing friends think I'm a socialist, and all my left-wing friends think I'm a die-hard Tory. Some people who've spent more time with me call me a filthy centrist.
Yeah, I'll go with filthy centrist.
But socialism sounds lovely, but it just doesn't work financially. It doesn't work financially. I mean,
Nope.
It's nice that it looks after people better in some ways, but in the long run, it never works. It's been shown again and again not to not work, sadly. So that's why I don't believe in it as an economic model, certainly. Aaron Hughes says, with the economy looking so bleak, why is it everyone seems to continue eating out and going on holiday? This is really surprising. You must live next door to Kezia.
Yes.
I mean, the point is that there are a substantial number of people who have very solid careers in well-paid jobs who are enjoying life. There are still, there are people doing that. There are places I go to occasionally, and you wouldn't know that there was any hardship whatsoever out there.
No, absolutely.
But they are pockets of places. They are just pockets of places, I think. AJ says, I'm going to vote for whoever I feel like on the day. Probably do a random draw. Well, that's as good as anything.
What you should do is take your dice along and be like Dice Man. That's a book that's worth reading. You can decide any choice in your life just by rolling a dice.
Yeah. Now, this next one is slightly contentious. So Norlis says, I thought most of the Charlie followers were informed and sensible people, but the amount of people here enthused by Galloway and reform has made me question that. Okay, Norlis, so why? Can you elaborate on why it's made you question that? Because I just think anyone who thinks they've got the answer, please let us know what it is, because it's not that simple, is it? It really isn't that simple. Because I know people who think they've got the answer always post it and go, just do this. Simple.
Yeah.
And it never is. And I just think that given the fact that the main parties have let us down so repeatedly for so many decades, I don't think it's fair to question anyone else making a serious, offering serious change. I don't know. I'm not looking into what Galloway or Reform or anyone else, but what I do hear those guys saying is, we can't carry on as we are, can we? And so anyone challenging the status quo, I think, is worth listening to. And what happens is what I observe, again, as a student of politics and media and communications, because I find it all fascinating. The one thing that I see corporate mainstream do is automatically discredit anyone and everyone who isn't corporate mainstream.
That's true. That is absolutely
shut them down. Shut them down. If they're not mainstream, shut them down, discredit. Shut them down, discredit. Now, George Galloway is someone who I know very, very little about. And when I was looking at all the news, so he may have done terrible things. I literally don't know. I've never paid any attention to him. But all the criticisms that I saw on the various TV shows and clips about the Rochdale election result were undermining him as a person, without giving any reason. Oh, well, he's divisive. Oh, he's done this. He said terrible things. But I was waiting to say, for example, when he said this, or for example, when he did that. Didn't hear any. So I don't know. I need to look more into it. But the point is, I think the more people challenging the status quo, the better. And unless they can be shown to have done something illegal and terrible, then the more the merrier challenging the status quo, I think. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I'm with you. And let's face it, there's nothing wrong with a challenge. That's the whole point of democracy. If the voters listen and say, no, do you know what? This guy is unhinged, or this lady is not right for the role, that's fine. But the challenge should be there. The fact that Labour and the Conservatives have managed to get away for so long, except for a little bit of Nick Clegg, without any challenges, has meant that we have now a single party. Everyone who talks about two cheeks of the same arse, the uniparty, they're not bloody wrong. You look at the policies ever since Tony Blair. The piece of paper that you have would be able to fit between Labour and the Conservatives is very, very thin.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, all right. So Norlis has answered. Galloway is an utter twat. So this is the kind of thing I mean. Like, some of my best friends are utter twats. It doesn't mean, maybe he is, but that's not a reason to discredit him. Like, I'll just do some reading about him. Reform is full of utter con artists and loon jobs. Okay, so what you're doing, you're doing personal discrediting of everything. But this sounds, what you've written there, Norlis, sounds like you've been. Please don't take offense to this. It sounds like a script that the corporate mainstream hand out to discredit people. Loonies, con jobs, con artists, loon jobs, twats, political wing of GB News, aren't out for the best interest of most people. All of the things you've listed in that comment there are classic sound bites that you hear. And people go, oh, right, I'll just ignore him then, without actually checking. What's he done wrong? I'd like to know. I'd love to know what he's actually done wrong. So, because I know nothing about him, but what I'm looking for is actual substance. Because he got elected with a huge majority, so. Peter Hitchens says, whether you agree with his politics or not, Galloway is a great debater. I've heard lots of people say that. I actually heard Russell Quirk say that. He said, I don't share his politics, but I respect him as an orator and a politician. As in, his not his actual.
Did you read the end of that sentence?
I won't do the schoolboy. No, I wasn't going to do the schoolboy joke, so that's why I didn't. Yeah, Imdadol Haq says, we live in a cruel world because anyone that wishes to change things for the good, the media guns them down and only elevates the crooks. That's a very fair observation, I think. Cool, wow. There's some good comments here. Gavin Ward, he's seen through me. Perhaps we should embrace a dystopian future where Charlie is our mostly benevolent supreme ruler.
I'm not sure I'd use the word mostly. Sometimes, occasionally.
Right. Yeah, okay, so Jay says, Galloway was my MP years ago in Tower Hamlets when he was fawning over Saddam Hussein. Make up your own mind. Yeah, I was aware of that. I mean, he was one of the politicians who stood up and said, no, there isn't a reason to invade Iraq.
Yes.
And history kind of proves him right.
And also, the deposing Saddam Hussein, as horrible as he may have been in that country, did not really lead to anything good, did it? No, exactly. So the point is, guys, the whole point of debate is considering people's views and discussing with them and understanding them, not just going, no, which is that is basically what discussing politics today is like. You say something, people go, oh, you're one of those. No. And they just click, and it's like no one knows how to go, okay, well, I disagree with you, but I'd love to understand why. And, if you have two people with opposing views to sit down and talk it through, normally one of them will end up changing their mind. Yeah. I always find, like, when I meet someone that has a really strong opposing view to mine, I'm always fascinated to think, well, maybe I'm wrong, maybe they're going to change their mind, or maybe they're wrong, and maybe I'll change their mind. But if you don't discuss it, nothing is achieved. But anyway, listen, this is not a politics channel. It's not a politics channel. But I have had people say to me a number of times, don't talk about politics, Charlie. How on earth are you going to do anything about the housing market if you ignore politics? Literally, the reason it's in the shit state it is in now is more down to politics and political failure than anything else, I think. Yep. And in particular, successive governments' inability to balance the books. Yes.
Which brings us to the last point I want to make, which is about the amount of money we're spending. I think it's £90 million a month on temporary accommodation.
Are we?
Yeah. 1.7 billion
Well, that's not very much.
a year. So the point is, that's money down the drain, gone. Imagine if you just decided to go, right, take that money and build small economical flats for the people that we have to house temporarily. So that we're not paying other people for it. We're receiving. It's an absolute no-brainer. The government just to build social housing with that money. Imagine if the government had spent the last 25 years building social housing with that money.
Oh well, yeah. I mean that's different. But as a one-off cost per year, that is only 0.02% of our GDP. So yes, I acknowledge it's a problem. And yes, if we built houses with that money rather than now spending it on houses that are overpriced that we're having to rent for people to live in, it would have been wonderful. But it's not actually the end of. It's not the biggest issue we have with the economy at the moment.
No, but the point you're missing. Sorry, the point I haven't made, and that's why you're missing it. It's not fair for me to expect you to get a point if I haven't made it.
Telepathy.
Is that the families living in temporary accommodation, their lives are effectively on hold.
Oh, yeah.
There are 250,000 families in temporary accommodation. Living in hotel rooms.
That is ridiculous.
And that is a very large chunk of people and a very large number of kids having their future severely diminished, their prospects. And so it's not just about the waste of money. It's about how quickly you could fix a problem if that money had instead been used to create permanent accommodation, even if it's like stepping stone accommodation, you know? It's a home. It's a secure, stable home with your own washing machine and stuff, rather than being in a hotel.
Yeah.
Where you can live and function as a family, even in a small flat, but it's a self-contained flat you can actually live in, rather than paying people to live in bed and breakfasts. It doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't.
We've been going an hour and 20 minutes.
It's time to do a runner.
AW07, I'll finish this comment. I love your way of thinking, Charlie. I wish people would think the same. Everyone has at least one good point or idea. Everyone. Yes. Agreed.
Yep.
Cool. All right, guys. Listen, Alex, thank you for your time. Thank you for your graphs as ever. Let's just see should we see where that poll's got to? 400 votes now. Yeah, check this out. Look at this. Look at the number of people who do not want either party to win. Who do you want to happen? 58% want both main parties to lose. So do I. I mean, I really do. I'm absolutely fed up with the status quo. I would just love to see the shit show that happens, and it would just make. I mean, could things get any worse? Could things be much worse?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Politically?
Oh, well, yes. Yeah, I mean, yes, of course it could be worse. We still, much as it's frustrating and irritating and is leading to our slow impoverishment, we could have any one of 1,000 different governments around the world that are truly shocking and do things like, kill off their citizens. And, it could be much, much worse.
Okay, but in the context of the UK, that's unlikely to happen.
Oh, I don't know. We could be getting there.
Really?
Well, you've seen V for Vendetta.
Yes. Okay. Right.
Well, let's face it. I mean, the problem we get now is people are so disenfranchised that they may end up voting for somebody like the Argentinian Prime Minister. And then you end up with somebody who is effectively a dictator because they simply won't take the processes that exist within the country, and they get rid of government departments, replacing them with their machine learning tools.
Toilet holder says, for fuck's sake, they are killing us off.
Oh, God. And at that point, they get more power into a smaller group. They believe that they're doing the right thing for the country. But in order to silence dissenters, suddenly the secret police are back out. You know, it's not that long ago that Germany had secret police. The Stasi were out there in East Germany. You know, it's not beyond the realms of possibility if the public gets so pissed off with the main parties that they vote for an outsider who begins to act like a dictator. That's what happened in Germany before the Second World War. You know, Hitler turned around and said, I will give the people, I will help with this hyperinflation. I will be able to change all of this around. And they said, Jesus, we've tried all the usual stuff. Let's have him. And look how that turned out.
Yeah. Well, on that bombshell, I think it's time to wrap up. But wait, do you see any candidates, any sort of dictatorial potentials amongst?
Oh, I honestly don't look, mate. What I can tell you is there is not one person senior in government at the moment that I would want to be running this country.
Wow. I can't think of one.
Exactly. I mean, go through the list, and it doesn't matter whether they're Conservative or Labour. I don't know much about Reform or any of the other parties, but there is not one person that I go, oh yeah, you're a bright, yeah, I have you.
I mean, again, speaking as a political student here, I await with interest to see what Mr. Farage decides to try and do as we get closer to an election, if it all starts to fall apart. He seems to be keeping his powder dry, doesn't he?
Yes. Yeah. I like Nick's comment. Charlie for PM. Stig could be the rest of the cabinet, including the drinks one. And on that note, Charlie, I must disappear.
Yeah. Okay, mate. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You go. I'm going to wrap up with everybody.
Okay. Cheers, mate. Catch you later.
Bye-bye. And to all of you who are still there watching, thank you so much. I hope you found that an enjoyable evening's discussion, entertainment. I hope it was also positive and constructive in some way. I do genuinely want to help make a difference. People are trying to move both short term and long term. But may I ask you a favor? The one thing that would make the biggest difference to stop people being so badly stuffed by the sharkiest of estate agents is if sellers didn't sign long sole agency contracts. So if you know someone who's selling, or if you're selling, just please say, whatever you do or don't do, just don't sign a long sole agency exclusive contract with your agent. Tell them that it won't be more than 4 weeks or something, right? 4 weeks or 2 weeks, 8 weeks maximum, maybe. But if an agent can't get you sold in 2 months, there's something wrong with that agent, all right? There's something wrong with that agent. So please, for people who need to move and moving is actually a requirement, don't make the mistake of signing a long sole contract with an agent, please. I'm going to try and do more about getting that message shared. Otherwise, if there's any other way I can help, please, you can find me. So go, if you haven't already done it, go to that URL there, bestagent.property/HPI, which you can also find on the Best Agent homepage, that link, and put your exchange price in. If you've bought or sold recently, or you know someone that has, whether you're an agent or a conveyancer or a mortgage broker or someone, go and put in the exchange price of any properties that have changed recently. The more we've got in there now helps us get started and get us over the next hurdle of getting the press to start spreading the word about it. So please do enter your, and also if you're whatever rent you're paying. So whether you're buying, selling, or renting, please put your exchange price in there. And if I can help you in any other way, I've had quite a few of you joined up the private movers Q&A club. But basically my website, mhwc.co.uk, that's where you can find me if you want to. So join the movers club if you want to get private messaging, guaranteed answers. You can book a video with me, 30 minutes or 60 minutes, and you can talk to my mortgage brokers. Always choose your own mortgage broker. That's the other thing that happened this week. Loads of stuff about mortgages. Everyone seems to think, or a lot of people seem to think, that mortgage brokers are only there to help you find the cheapest rate. That is so misguided and such a mistaken point of view. If you just want the cheapest mortgage, you can go and find, there are comparison sites, right? But mortgage brokers do a huge amount more than that. They've, like, each lender will lend the same person different values. There was, I think, an £48,000 difference between 5 lenders for one borrower and what that one borrower could borrow. 48 grand difference between, and these are 5 major lenders, right? Early redemption clauses, what your personal situation is, it's about really personally finding the best product out of the thousands of products that are there on the shelf. That's what a broker's for. Find your own independent whole of market mortgage broker. If you can't, then talk to my guys, as you can find on that link as well. Make sure you've got a conveyancer lined up. My conveyancers are amazing if you haven't got one. And make sure if you're buying, I've also got my offer. So for all the benefit of new followers, first time buyer followers, I have an offer template on my Moving Home Maturely website. Let me get the link. I'll put it, offer template. Here it is. I'll just share this page. So this is what it looks like, and I will put the link to this page. So this basically this page is the whole. It's a video explaining it, and it's the actual email template you can use yourself down there. And there's a link to a Google Doc version that you can just create your own Google Doc version and edit it from there. And the link to that is in the live chat now at the bottom. And I will put the link to this. So there it is. I'll put the link to that also in the description underneath at the end of this. If you're listening to this on audio podcast, don't forget links to everything are always in the show notes underneath the podcast, wherever you're listening to it. Otherwise, thank you guys. It's been really good fun. And this socialism worked very well in zoos. Brilliant. Right. I've got to go. Love you all. Love and luck. Peaceful, healthy night's sleep. Hope you're all well. See you soon on the next video. Bye-bye, guys.